ঠিক আছে, আমরা 2 মিনিট আছে মহারাজ, 8টা বাজতে। আমি আপনি মনে হয় অনেক আপনার সূত্র থেকে আরো অনেক ভক্ত যোগদান করেছেন। আমি যেমন এই যে মনে হচ্ছে আমার, কারণ এনাদের আমাদের আপনার রামকৃষ্ণ পাঠচক্রতে আমি ওনাদেরকে দেখিনি, তো আমার মনে হয় আপনার থেকেই হয়েছে। যেমন মুরলী শ্রাবণজি রয়েছেন, আর respected beloved Swamiji from Ireland, Swami Vimokshananda ji joined us, and we all knew, we attended the past class about the Himalaya, Devatatma Himalaya and Swamiji, the relation with him and that's divine thing. So today this is the second part, and Maharaj, accept my humble pranam and please start this satsang, and we are eagerly waiting to listen you. Jai Ram Krishna, Jai Ma, Jai Swamiji.
Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Harihi Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramakrishna. Dear devotees and friends, happy to meet you all again. Last month we met, and as per the request of Anita, we tried to discuss about the relationship Swamiji had made with the great Himalayas. What was the view of Swamiji? And when Swamiji went there, how he experienced certain emotions, that also we saw. We saw actually three things. One is his experience at Amarnath, and also his experience of doing Kumari Puja of a boatman's daughter. And also we saw his moving around in the Himalayas and how he brought Nivedita with him, and then his experience about seeing the Amarnath. All these things we have been discussing. Initially, I started the talk with the great poet Kalidasa's one quotation on Himalayas. As you can remember, that when Swamiji went to Madras and wanted to meet one Shastri, so his son received him. He opened the doors for him. And then Swamiji stayed at his home for 9 nights. So Swamiji one day saw this boy studying Kalidasa. So he asked him, what does Kalidasa say about Himalayas? And that very passage, that boy was reading. So the boy told him how he has what he said, and the story about the birth of Kumara, that is Lord Karthikeya. That is the story that he has been writing. In that he says, Asti Uttarashyam Dishi Devatatma Himalayo Nama. He says, Himalaya Nama, that is, there is in the northern side, Asti iti Uttarashyam Dishi, the northern side, there is. It doesn't say there is a mountain, and this mountain's name is this. Instead of that, Kalidasa says, there is a Devatatma by the name Himalaya, he says. So the Himalaya name he brings later. So what a great veneration for that wonderful mountain range that Kalidasa had. Nothing less, Swamiji also had. Swamiji also had great veneration. He says that because of the Himalayas, India was protected in those days from the invaders. Secondly, he says, perennial rivers in the northern parts of India, you will find the rivers never dry up. Even in the hottest summer, the rivers never dry up. And that is because of the Himalayas. The ice is melting all the time. And you get perennial rivers. And also the culture. He speaks about Himalaya is the Manadanda. That is the word our Kalidasa has used. A parameter to decide what is what. So he says this Himalayan range created a wonderful civilization, an unimaginable culture it created. And that culture of civilization, if you want to compare with any other civilization, or if you want to ascertain the greatness of any civilization, you have to put it against this civilization that grew up under the Himalayas. So such a great veneration Swamiji had for the Himalayas. So today we shall speak on the, unfortunately last time I just said that there are many incidents, I said, so they all caught me. No, then if so, then you must say some more incidents in the next. Okay, that's how we started. We are meeting today. So today we shall see in the Himalayas how Swamiji had wonderful experience. He was traveling to Himalayas with his brother disciple, and Sister Nivedita, who moved with him, she has written certain incidents in her book, The Master as I Saw Him, as well as Notes on Wandering with the Swami Vivekananda. These two books give us a very good idea about Swamiji's one. So I will tell you one portion, one of this that Swamiji speaks about his experience is to Akhandanandji. What does Akhandanandji say about Swamiji's meeting this, having this type of experience? So that I'm going to read out a few lines only. So Akhandananda and Swamiji, they were traveling, and while traveling, they went to Kakri Ghat. That was the place that came on the way. Kakri Ghat is about 40 kilometers from Nainital. Nainital word we must have, that says city's name we must have heard, is a very beautiful city on the hills. So Nainital hills are very famous for the people who go for the vacation, etc. So Nainital, only 40 kilometers. In Kakri Ghat, they stopped and they were very, very tired. And then after stopping, Swamiji said, let me sit under this great peepal tree. There was a peepal tree, and then he sat under that. What had happened to him at that time? So the time, how the time went on, Akhandanandji could not know. Swamiji sat totally absorbed in meditation. Total absorption in meditation. When he came back, he is telling to Akhandananda, Gangadhar, well, here under this banyan tree, these are his words, here under this banyan tree, one of my greatest problems of my life has been solved. Something great to understand, this one sentence. Swamiji, greatest problem under the Kakri Ghat and under that tree. So Swamiji wrote down what he wants to say about this Kakri Ghat experience in Bangla, in a book. And that was given to later we found out that, what he wrote there in the notebook, what he jotted down, that's also very interesting. He says, I'm reading in the English translation, the microcosm and the macrocosm are built on the same plan. Just as the individual soul is encased in the living body, so is the universal soul in the living Prakriti, in the nature, the objective universe. Shiva, that is Kali, is embracing Shiva. This is not a fancy. This covering of the soul, that is by the individual one, by the other, that is by nature, is analogous. Analogous means comparable to the relation between an idea and the word, expressing it. They are one and the same. And it is only by a mental abstraction that one can distinguish them. Thought is impossible without words. Therefore, Swamiji quotes a Bible statement that in the beginning was the word, etc. This is the note in Bangla he had written. From these 4 sentences, what we try to understand, that I want to tell you, such a beautiful way that Swamiji had an experience of the oneness between, or oneness of microcosm and macrocosm. What is microcosm and what is macrocosm? In Swamiji's definition, this individual soul, that is the Jivatma, is encased in a body. So this body that you see me, this is a body, and this body has got a mind. So this body-mind complex is like a container. So in the container, the Jivatma is residing. So God is within everyone. This is what we all have heard from everybody. All the sages say that. So God is within everyone means what? That God, that Jivatma, is residing in the encased body and mind. I'm requesting Anita to look into those, what you call, chats and see if any problem is anything reported there. So you can.
Maharaj, I am looking after it.
Okay.
You will continue?
So,
okay.
This microcosm and macrocosm essentially are one. So if microcosm is the Jivatma that is encased in the body-mind complex, what is macrocosm? He says the macrocosm, the cosmic, is nature. Prakriti is encased in this objective universe. So it is something, a great realization he had. And that's why he's telling Ganka that, well, today, one of the greatest problems I resolved. What was his problem? If you analyze what was his problem, he had many problems. And he says, one of the greatest problems, he says, one of his problems was, how does he put into practice the Advaita knowledge that Sri Ramakrishna has given him in Nirvikalpa Samadhi? The oneness of the universe, that knowledge Sri Ramakrishna has handed over to him. How does he put it into practice? That was his problem. And he experiences that particular level of identifying with that nature, how can he put into practice? That was his problem. And then that was resolved. That means he could understand that he and the external universe, as we call it, that he and that, they are one. The oneness of him with the universe, he realized. And this is called empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is nothing but a feeling of oneness with the other person's suffering. We all understand that. Don't we show some sympathy to the other person who is suffering? Yes, we do show sympathy. If any poor man we see, we'd like to give some food. If you want, you can give some coins or rupees or some old clothes. Yes, we are sympathetic. And because we are sympathetic, we are able to provide them. But you see, that is one level of identity with the external world. If somebody comes and tells you, what has happened in my home? I lost my mother, I lost my father a few days back. If somebody cries in front of you, how your sympathy goes to that person? That sympathy goes in the way of consoling the other person. Perhaps you will sit next to the person, hold the person's hands, and calm down the person from crying. And then, in the physical level, you get an identification with that person. At that moment, when you are consoling the person, you are feeling as if you have suffered that. And then intellectually, if somebody writes to me or somebody rings me up and says, Maharaj, there is a calamity in my family, what I should say? I am consoling by intellectually. So at that level, there is no physical identity here because they are very far away. But then there is intellectual identity is established. If that person feels peace at my words, that person will say, Maharaj, today I talk to you, I feel very peaceful today. That way, if he says, then that intellectual identity has been established. So there is a physical identity, there is an emotional identity, there is an intellectual identity. You can go on like that. But somewhere an identity comes where you and the other person are non-different.